Hello, listeners. How are you this week? Welcome to episode 77 of Push2Plat. We're coming at you a little bit later in the week, and I suppose a little bit of a Halloween episode, if you like. We've got a special for you today. We've got the wonderful resident Darrel, the host of Loot Bros, host of Comic Cast, host of the horror podcast 2236, basically a podcasting god with me today. And we're gonna do like a bit of a regular episode, and then releasing off the back of this one will be a deep dive on the Maid of Sker. So if you haven't played that game but you still want a bit of a fix, then stick with us for this next hour or so and then go play the game. It's worth playing. But look, we'll get to that later. First off today, how are you, Darrel? What's been happening?
Well, what's up, CJ? Hey, I'm glad to be here tonight. We had a slew of PC Master Race problems to get this thing going, and I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little worried that it wasn't going to work out, but I was convinced that we were going to try every possible means of communication. We went through multiple different social channels. We went through podcast programs. Before you know it, I was going to send you an Omegle line. We were going to get on and I was going to send you an Xbox Live chat invite of the PlayStation chat. I mean, even if we had to get on the Nintendo Switch and just, use our friend codes to make this thing happen, we're doing a show tonight. So I'm glad to be here.
That is true. And look, we're not the only we're not the only people, I should say, that are having problems with the PC Master Race, which sort of segues beautifully into the topic we should touch on. Not really a Halloween topic, but I suppose horrific in its own right, Darrel. And this is, of course, the Cyberpunk delay here, that they've now pushed this to December. Look, I'm not sure whether you're eagerly anticipating this game or not, but what do you make of this? Another delay of 3 weeks. What do you think?
I think that this is one of many delays, ultimately resulting in the cancellation of Cyberpunk 2077. As a matter of fact, it will be 2077 before the game is released.
That's a hot take. I like that. So basically, you've done your pre-order money, people. You're in real trouble there.
There you go.
2077. It's interesting, though, isn't it? Because, I don't mind that it's been pushed because there's so much to play anyway, and it's I suppose this is a double question because it's a game that I'd already decided I would be playing on a next-gen system, and I'm not getting a next-gen system day one. I know you are getting the PS5 day one. So is that sort of how you'd approach a game like this as well? Like, would you even consider playing this on your PS4 knowing that you're getting the PS5 anyway, therefore you'd be happy to wait?
Oh, absolutely. There's not a chance in the world that I would play this game on my PS4. Honestly, I'm really, really excited about my PS5, and we're 2 weeks away, and I might even go buy one of the DualSense controllers because they're hitting the market tomorrow. I actually thought about going and picking one up just to go ahead and use on my PS4 because I'm so excited about a new controller, and I mean, I've got such a slew of games still to play. Pop in a new control and enjoy. I don't know, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. The other thing that I found fascinating, now this is something I heard from somebody else, and then I started to think about it, and it makes a lot of sense, is the game has gone gold. Obviously, it's pressed, so it's not a distribution issue. The game is out there, it's ready to go, but obviously they're not happy to ship it in this state. So what does that say, do you think, about a game that, has been endorsed by, Sony and everybody, Microsoft in particular? They need it out there, and yet it's obviously not good enough to run what's on the disc pressed. And then if we are to believe that they do ship in 3 weeks, which seems, I don't know, it's a bizarre date to choose and not just push it to next year. What is the size, do you think, of this patch, this 3-week patch, not day one patch, but 3-week patch that must be required to save this game that isn't good enough at the moment on the discs to be usable?
Okay, so I got two answers. I'm going to give you my answer, and then I'll give you my diplomatic answer. So we got a Master Chief situation on our hands, like Master Chief Collection. Whatever's on the disc is not what you're gonna be playing. I'm convinced that I'm actually convinced that the actual release date is 2077, but I've already said that. But I think that the game obviously is broken, or they wouldn't have pushed it a few weeks to finish up the day one patch. I would like to believe that that they just want to polish it, that it's just a few extra bugs or whatever. But we've been burnt so many times, not by CD Projekt Red, but just by developers shipping broken games. I'm pretty convinced that there's something catastrophically wrong, or they wouldn't have delayed it again. If it was just bugs, they might have chalked it up to, oh, it's a big open world game with all these options that you can do and customization, and with that comes whatever. I don't know. I'm convinced that there's something bigger wrong with it. And who knows? It might just be because they are releasing on so many platforms. They did say that that's why that they're having to push it. So maybe it really is a situation where it's like not every version is up to snuff. So back it up 3 weeks, clean up whichever, I guess, the Stadia version that's not working right, or maybe that's the definitive version. I don't know.
Yes. That could well be. It's an interesting thing anyway. And look, if you don't give a toss either way, listeners, at least spare a thought for the marketing department, who must be in a horrific mess at the moment as they're answering the phones and making excuses for like the fourth time. But horrific in a sense, Darrel. But look, let's push on. So we're going to get into games and stuff later, listeners. But I thought, why don't we start with not like our favorite horror games, because the Loot Bros, they did a wonderful ranking of your top 10 sort of horror games, didn't you there, Darrel, in the last episode, which is available on all good podcast providers. You should be checking them out if you're not already, the Loot Bros podcast. So rather than do a ranking, I thought maybe we could just touch on particular scenes or parts of a games or movies that perhaps they give you those chills, Darrel. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely, man. I think that's going to be awesome.
Excellent. Well, look, why don't I start us off? I thought, like, we can do it however you want, if you want, but I thought I might start with movies, if that's okay. And I was thinking about it, in the last couple of days, and it's not so much the slasher films that get me. It's not seeing a head fly off a body, or this sort of mass, murder or torture that really gets me. What gets me going, listeners, is the thrill, I suppose, of the chase, the not knowing, Darrel, and that building tension where almost nothing happens and then something happens. So with that in mind, I thought I'd shoot off my first one here, and this is the movie Hereditary. I don't know if you've seen this one with Toni Collette, Australian Toni Collette.
No, I've never heard of that one.
So this is a great movie because it's exactly this. It's a very slow boil sort of a movie, but then there's just some bizarre shit that just comes out of nowhere and happens. So, towards the end, it gets quite intense or whatever else, but it's the sort of movie like, and I'm not giving anything away here, but you're watching and a kid has their head hanging out the window, and that's not a good move. You're told that's not a good move as a child, and surely as you'd expect, a stop sign comes and decapitates the head just out of nowhere. And it's just so blunt. And then it just cuts to a scene. Yeah, that's right. Where it's just normal again. And it's this sort of juxtaposition of this that I think I really like in horror myself. Now, what about you though? What gets you going, Darrel?
So when it comes to horror, I'm attracted to gore. And not gore for gore's sake. Like I like to see heads getting chopped off, and I like zombies, like I think that werewolves and vampires are cool, that kind of stuff. But like I don't like the really gross, low budget horror films where they just like, pour buckets of blood everywhere for the sake of it. That's not really my thing. So I enjoy movies like that. And what actually scares me are like demonic things, So like I really like the exorcism style movies, but I am also like kind of creeped out by them. So, and I'll give you an example on one. There's a movie called The Priest. I believe it's got Anthony Hopkins in it, and it's it's an exorcism style movie or whatever. And as a religious dude, like to me, it's like these things are super interesting, but it's also kind of like don't play with fire, because it's like this may or may not burn you.
Yes.
And so I remember one night, my kids were real young, and I was in my studio at the time, and I had the movie The Priest going. I was gonna watch it. I was like, all right, this is cool. I had just got through editing a few some music at the time, so this goes to tell you how long ago it's been. And they got to the point where the dude was like performing like the interrogation on the demon, and I got like the movie running through my sound system that I do my music editing through, and I was like, man, this sounds good. It's really creepy. It's like all over the room. The lights are off. Kids are in bed. I'm sitting there listening to this thing, and he's like, tell me your name, demon. What is it? And the thing is like kind of barking back at him or whatever. Mm-hmm. And like, as that scene built the tension, I started feeling my heart race a little bit. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, and he's like commanding the demon or the demon to tell it it's his name. And like right before it says his name, I like hit stop. I was like, you know what? I'm good actually.
Done.
And I had this overwhelming feeling that I was like I know this isn't real. This is a movie. But as a religious person, you start to think about like, okay, what am I inviting into my house right now? Mm. And I'm like, I got kids. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't need to hear this thing's name for whatever. And that was the first time I had ever like seen a movie and like been genuinely creeped out to the point where I was like, I'm good, actually. I'm going to stop right here. Mm-hmm. And I've watched like all the Exorcist movies and like the haunting of, Emily Rose or whatever. Mm. But something about that one got me. I was like, you know what? I'm going to stop right there.
I like that because, I was just thinking as you say that, it's that thing that you hear like, stand in front of the mirror and say Bloody Mary 5 times. And I'm like, that's just full of shit. But look, I'm not going to try that, just in case. I've caught myself saying it 3 times, but never 5, And it's funny, though, because you mentioned those movies, and along that line, of course, the Nun, which was, not that long ago, 2018, I found terrifying, but particularly the Conjuring series. Now, I don't know if you're across these as well, because that does play with that possession or whatever. The Conjuring 2 in the English one in the UK, and I'll never forget that scene where the entity or whatever it is in the chair, and they can't see it, but the chair moves in that room, and it's just fantastic building of tension. A terrifying movie, that one.
Yeah, that's like I said, I grew up watching this stuff, and I'm sure you've heard me say on my show before, like my family owned a video store, so like we watched movies all the time. So at a young age, I had watched all the Exorcist movies, and those were like, I mean, it was pretty disturbing, the stuff that they did in that first movie. Mm-hmm. And have you ever seen the first Exorcist?
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about, like when she has the crucifix and she's just, kind of, it's pretty messed up stuff. And I've watched those movies and I'm like, yeah, I come across the priest and I was like, you know what, I'm good. I'm gonna stop right there. I'm gonna go watch some cartoons or something to get a little palate cleanser.
I like that. Now, I thought, one of the scenes in a movie that has stayed with me forever. So, and I'm so old now, Darrel, it'll probably stay with me for the rest of my natural life as we approach the decline, I believe I'm told. So, and that is, well, it's actually 2 movies. The first one's an older horror movie, The Omen, which was a fantastic movie with the child star, and of course it had the wonderful song The Fly as well, which I don't know if you're familiar with this, the Dave Matthews release song. And it's a funny song because he never released it, I believe, on a record. I think he only ever did it for that, it's quite a depressive song or whatever. But a wonderful movie that just implies there's an evil presence in a child. But then, as much as I enjoyed that, the moment that stays with me, and I think, Darrel, we're of a similar age, and I know we've never talked about this, so I'm interested to see if this movie had any effect on you or not, because it's definitely a product of its time. And, of course, part of the reason this movie, at least in Australia, was so successful was that there was a lot of mythology around the movie. Was it a true story? Was it not? There were posters up on back in the day when they put posters up on telegraph poles for these 3, young people that were missing or whatever. whatever. There's stuff all over the internet, and there was this like, it could be true, you know, it might not be, it might be a movie, whatever. It was low budget, and of course it was the wonderful Blair Witch Project.
Absolutely.
And it had a scene in it where, towards the end, I believe, where the boy is in the house there or whatever, and he's staring at the wall right up against it, and he's, you know, mumbling or whatever else. And it's that scene is the most terrifying thing I've ever seen, because it's the culmination of the movie, and you know in your head what is going to happen, or what could be happening here. And, you know, perhaps it is all true. And that combination, I was late school, I believe, towards the end of school when that movie came out. The combination of all that stuff and being, you know, impressionable at that age, Darrel, that was perhaps the height of a horror experience for me, I think. How did that movie hit you around the same age? I think it would have. And did it have any effect?
Absolutely. I think I saw that in like, I think I might have been in middle school when that came out. I know we had our family store, and I believe I went to the theaters to see it. But I do remember there being so much hype, you know, and that's pre-internet, you know? So like back then, like it was natural hype. Like people had to talk about it. It was all over the news. It was like, this, is it real? Is it not? You know? And it was like at school, everybody's like, I went and saw the Blair Witch. It wasn't scary. And then you go see it and you're like, holy crap, this is terrifying. But yeah, I remember seeing that movie, and it was exactly that. Like, and I know it's the scene you're talking about too.
Yes.
But it was pretty wild, man.
It was.
And it was so cool. And that's something that I'm sure a lot of people listen to the show nowadays. Like they don't get to experience that, you know? It's like back then you couldn't Google whether or not this stuff really happened. It was like, it was all word of mouth. And like, I mean, I guess you could go to like a library and look up newspapers, but there was so much hype around that movie. So much hype.
It was crazy, and I remember going and seeing it. It might have been the first or second night out it was in Australia. Of course, at this point, the films came out, you know, a good month or two after the US here in Australia. It's a little bit more streamlined now, but I went and saw it with a couple of friends, and then a whole group decided they wanted to go see it 3 nights later. So I went again and had one of these. You could not make this up. It's just a great experience in the theater, and I'll never forget it. We're all sitting in a row, and we were the speakers halfway up the cinema or whatever on the wall as well. And, you know, we're about 25 minutes into it or whatever. It's getting a bit spooky. It's at night in the forest. And the speaker starts to static, and then it starts to hum, and then it starts to thump. Boom, 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 like this. And it's not meant to happen. And people are shitting themselves in the cinema. And it's like, is this supposed to happen? This is unbelievable, blah, blah, blah. And because, you know, having had seen it 2 nights before, I knew it wasn't supposed to happen. But I just looked around. I thought, this is unbelievable. This is what we miss out, Darrel, with modern technology. Back then, shit like this used to happen all the time. But now, you know, we miss out on this, you know, fourth wall almost.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, it takes man, I'm telling you, like, it's just so many experiences out there now that like are missed that we had.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you know, look, we're old. Look, let's move on to some games. Before we do, I had a feeling you might like the B grade horror, and there was another one that I had. I don't know that you'll know this one because it's a, you know, critically shamed movie, I suppose. But look, I enjoyed it. It's the movie called The Cell from 2000. It actually starred Jennifer Lopez and Vince Vaughn, although I don't think either of them would claim this in their, you know, avoir of amazing films. Have you ever heard of this, The Cell?
So Jennifer Lopez is captured in that movie?
She is, yes.
Yes, okay. And Vince Vaughn is the bad guy?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, okay, yeah. I do remember that movie. I don't remember it well, but I do remember seeing it.
Yeah, it's another product of its time because, again, I was young, a little bit maybe more alternative than now, and it's a movie, listeners. I highly urge you to seek it out. I'm sure it's absolutely shocking and doesn't stand up, but the concept era was insane because they were tracking a serial killer that they'd put into a coma, and they were trying to find his final victims, and he had this fetish of sort of hanging from the ceiling from hooks, which alarming in itself. But when they get into his mind, it's such like, it's just so bizarre the way he sees everything and the costuming, and it's just insane. Like, he's an insane mind or whatever. And it just, I'd never seen anything like that, I think. And while it was, you know, it had horror elements or whatever, it was just so absurd as well. You know, the creatures that he had in his mind and the way he saw people and things. And, you know, what's even more disturbing is I just found out this morning they actually made The Cell 2 9 years later, which, you know, obviously went straight to TV or somewhere, I don't know, and died a horrible death. But that is something that I need to check out, I think.
So on the same lines of that, there was a movie that I used to love called Strangeland, and it starred the singer from Twisted Sister, Dee Snider. But essentially what he would do is he would like get in these little AOL style chat rooms and then lure people to parties or get-togethers, and then he would like capture them and then torture them and do weird piercing stuff. But when you were talking about the dude in the cell hanging from meat hooks,
Yes,
that's something that guy, his name was Captain Howdy. That's something Captain Howdy, Dee Snider's character, did in Strangeland. So it was a very, very interesting movie. The thing that attracted me to it the most was the soundtrack, because at the time, you're talking like things being a little product of their time, a little more alternative. Like that was when we had like Roadrunner Records was really big, and so you had like all these Roadrunner bands doing soundtracks for movies. Like End of Days was a good horror movie with a great soundtrack. Strangeland was one. And Strangeland is a little more of a B tier movie, but that definitely. Several movies came out in that era where it was like, kidnap-esque movies where Dude Man is into some sort of self-mutilation or torture.
It's a wonderful time, isn't it?
I know, right?
It's amazing, though, how staid a lot of the things that come out now are. Or maybe we're just jaded because you see, someone chop someone in half and you're like, I've seen that before. Come on, show me something I haven't seen.
Exactly.
Now, moving towards games then. Now, it's very much the same for me. I don't play a lot of horror games, but I know you love the genre. And one of the problems is that I find, games are much more immersive for me than film. Because yes, you get sucked into a film, but in a game, the problem is for me in a horror game is that it doesn't move forward unless I move it forward. So if you're in a really tense situation, if you don't do anything, you're going to be in that tense situation for a long time, but it's hard maybe to move it forward. And then, of course, a lot of the horror games, they have this element of pushing you forward or throwing things at you, or this nemesis figure that forces you to react quickly. And that's something that I don't like in games. I feel really uncomfortable. Now, I know that's something that you probably quite like, though, with your love of Resident Evil.
Actually, I will be honest with you. I don't like that anymore. It's something that I've said recently on my show that, like, the older I get, and it's part of it is a time thing too. Like, I don't want this ever-present threat that I can't stand up to pushing me through the game, And Resident Evil 2 Remake is exactly that. Resident Evil 2 being my favorite game of all time, the Resident Evil 2 Remake took one of the elements of a certain scenario in the game and thought it was a really good idea to make that like an ever-present threat that pushes you through the game, to the point that you can't ever stand around and admire the surroundings. Probably one of the most beautiful games to come out this generation. And you can't sit back and enjoy the detail in the game because this douchebag is constantly chasing you that you can't kill. And although it racks up the tension tenfold, I'm getting too old for that kind of tension, Like I don't want to grab my chest the whole time I play a video game, and it really does feel like some of these horror games have like that's the new fad. I think games like Outlast, and even Blair Witch to an extent where you can't defend yourself. It's like I don't like that. Like I wouldn't like that in real life. I don't like that in my games. Like and I'll use an example in my house, right? So jump scares are a huge deal in my house. You could argue that jump scares are a love language in this house. So like I'll hide behind a door and scare my wife every single day. And that doesn't, I've been on this one for 19 years. That doesn't get old to me. My 5-year-old son, he will wait 10, 15 minutes to, behind the door, behind the corner of a wall to jump scare somebody. I'll hide in my food pantry. you know, and like, and that's just what we do in this house. My wife does it. My kids do it. It's like, that's how we say we love you. And so one day I tried to up the game a little bit, and I grabbed a mask for like a Halloween, like a beast mask. And my wife was in the room with my daughter as she had just got out of a shower. So she was helping my daughter do her hair before bed. And I crouched outside the door with this mask on for what felt like an eternity. And whenever my wife opened the door, I jumped up from the ground at her face and screamed. I was like, ah! She punched me dead in my face. Like, fight or flight, and she hit me hard. Like, and it was awesome. I mean, like, she kind of blacked my eye a little bit, but like hit me dead in the face. And it was one of those things where I kind of realized, like, when something scares us, it is our natural reaction to swing, to hit it, to throw something, to fight back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like have lost the interest in these games that will not allow me to fight back, because that's not who we are in our nature, you know. So
it's interesting, and listeners, that's a wonderful insight into the new reality show coming soon, Resident Darrel and his dysfunctional family.
Hey,
check back in 20 years and see how adjusted his children are.
My wife and I have talked about, like, we could do reality TV.
Yes, yeah. I reckon you could. From what I've seen of your family, you definitely could. Now, swinging back to the games, Outlast, that's a good one that you mentioned, because I played a fair chunk of that game, and it's one of these things that I think I like in horror, that nothing happens for a long time, and then all hell breaks loose. And of course, I'm thinking of in the basement, and the things start running at you. And it's what you said, it just became too intense for me, and this was a few years ago, and I just had to stop playing. And I think in some ways, maybe I appreciate that, because it's a finishing point. I can just go, okay, well, that's enough. But then having played, now I know this is a favorite game of yours here, the Resident Evil 7 in VR. Some of the greatest horror moments for me are the unknown or the unexpected, I suppose. And I'm thinking about early on in that game, and I wonder if perhaps it's tied up in VR too, because of the immersion factor. But before you go inside the house, and the door is open, but the inside you can't see anything, it's just completely black or whatever else, and you have to make your character move into the house or whatever else. And the apprehension for me, the hairs are standing up. I can feel, the rigidity of my whole body, Darrel, which is a wonderful thing at this age, very rare, but the rigidity. And I was just like, I have to physically go in there, and look, nothing happens when you first walk in, but not knowing that, I think it's that element now that it appeals to me more, perhaps like you, than this thing chasing you or running at you. But then, having said that, of course, when he busts through the wall, which I know you talked about recently, it's a wonderful moment. the father busts through the wall. So
yes, it is. And that's smart horror, like, to set the atmosphere to the point where it is so uneasy, I don't want to walk in the door. Like, that's really well done. But yeah, that part where he busts through the wall, man, that hurt my heart a little bit, literally. Like, I was audibly like, whoa.
Well, I've told the story before, but that was the scene, because he is chasing you at that point. So there's a lot going on, and I'm moving down, then I'm standing up, of course, playing VR, and he jumped through, and I jumped physically out of my skin and to the left and hit the door with the VR system and gave myself the black eye, which was a wonderful experience. And the end of my VR playing for some months after that, because it scared the shit out of me. Because of course you lose your perspective in VR too. You're usually facing backwards with the cord around your neck after 5 minutes. So it was a terrifying experience. But I remember bits like that. But I wonder, as we say, this apprehension of going in that room, like, I imagine if you're 18, 19, 20, there's probably not a lot of apprehension there. But I think those sort of things I find as we get older, and it was interesting you addressed your family there, I wonder if it plays into the back of our mind. You said you want to take a swing because we have things that we want to protect, or we have our life. We value our life as it currently is and what we could lose. And I think as you get older, playing in that horror element of what you have and what you can potentially lose if something happens to you in this way, I think that's a very clever mechanic that perhaps perhaps is aimed more at the mature gamer who perhaps feels that more than somebody who's, not desensitized, but I'm sure you know what I mean. The person playing Call of Duty that's running through, it's like a door, I don't care, whatever sort of a thing. Yeah, I don't know how you feel about that.
Absolutely, man. And it's definitely, I play these games different as I'm older. I'm much more conservative in the way that I play. To the point of that I don't really go through the horror games as hardcore as I used to. It used to be like bust through the wall, if you get overrun, make a run for it. Like it was almost like a puzzle to me. Yeah, it's a little scary, but like there's a science to it. And now I'm just like, oh man, dude, I'm going to die. This is going to hurt. This is going to suck. I mean, I just, as I've changed, the way I play changes. And I do think age is a huge factor into that because, I mean, I don't know. I'm older, slower. I got to take my time. I can't, my reflexes aren't as good. So,
yeah, I get that. So, but before we move on to maybe what we've been playing, I have one for you in this vein because this game I particularly liked. I enjoyed the first iteration. I'm talking here of Layers of Fear, but the second one, Layers of Fear 2, they had more money, they had more experience, and they created a game which I think it creates and builds suspense through, again, not a lot happening. It's set on a ship, and you just get to explore or whatever else, and it's an interesting gameplay mechanic because it's sort of done in chapters, if you like, 3 sort of main chapters, and each chapter you have a sort of a decision to make or whatever. But one of the strangest things in that game is that it's very peaceful to a degree. You can take your own time. Sure, there's some wonderful sound effects, but then they still felt the need, and, this is the Resident Evil curse I feel coming back to. They still feel the need to have sections in that game that do put you under pressure time-wise or whatever else. And I think it just, and I know we're dwelling back here to the Resident Evil, but I want to ask you, because you're so well versed in this series, everything I read about horror games, and it will come up in our deep dive on the Maid of Sker later, they keep referring back to Resident Evil and this big thing about, does it move the genre forward? And it almost seems like a lot of horror games now feel they have to pay homage to that oppressive figure, that's how they create this horror. I don't know, like, if you see that, or if you think, is it a compulsory part of a horror game now, I suppose?
Oh, absolutely, man. And it's crazy because there are like so many games, there's like one-to-one, like, oh, I've seen that in Resident Evil. That's what they're paying homage. They're saying thank you. They're that's them kicking back, and it's almost like that Resident Evil elements are required, and I'm not saying that this is the way it should be, but this is the way it feels. That a game, it's not horror or survival horror if it doesn't have one of these. It kind of goes back to the the old Metroidvania thing, that you guys were kind of going around with your show for the longest time. If you think about it, like Metroid and Metroidvania is Metroid game style and then a Castlevania game style, but like I heard it explained one time by someone who actually knew what it meant. Like it might have even been Frosty on our show, and it's like one came first. It's like a chicken and egg thing. You can't have one without the other. So it's really should be a Metroid style game, or it should be a Castlevania style game, not a Metroidvania, because you can't have one without the other kind of thing. And and that's kind of how these horror games have gotten with Resident Evil, that they almost pay homage to the game, not necessarily the style, if that makes any sense. Because like when I think about horror games, right? So I got into Resident Evil. That was my first experience in a horror video game. But there were others out in the same kind of time frame. You had Silent Hill. Silent Hill being more psychological horror. Granted, it was made as a response to Resident Evil. It kind of had its own, DNA. And then you had something like Alone in the Dark that was a little bit different than those. And all those game franchises kind of moved forward in their own right and evolved in their own ways. But now it's like you got a generation of people who grew up on Resident Evil making games. So what you're seeing is them imitating what got them started,
Yeah.
which I don't think is a bad thing, but I think there's a pattern there, and I don't know if that, going back to what you said earlier, if that does that move the genre forward, or is it, I'm making a game that plays like what I enjoy.
Yeah, yeah. I have a strong feeling that is the case. That, yeah, as you say, they've grown up with this, but the homage is almost dictating the direction of these games. Perhaps we're still to see somebody break the mold completely. And I'm thinking of, it's really interesting because I'm playing a little bit of Amnesia now, which again is on the other side. Again, it's in the dark. It's a wonderful game, this new Amnesia Rebirth, heavily on the sound effects and everything else, sound design, but it's still got so many of those elements. And of course, the other one that came out, not quite as good, but still a wonderful series, is the new Remothered game, which is basically a Resident Evil on crack, Darrel. If you haven't played it, I suggest you don't do it without some heart medication, because the game comes at you so fast in such a small place. But it's all... It all could be a Resident Evil game, I think. That's how I feel about it. So it's interesting. It's interesting, I suppose. Why don't we shift across then to a little bit of what you've been playing this week, Darrel?
All right, so it's Halloween. You think, oh man, I'm going to play all the scary games. So I decided that I would fire up Halo 2.
Well, that is terrifying.
Well, my son and I have been getting up early in the morning. We have a new, a golden retriever puppy. So I'm staying up late. I'm getting up in the night, letting the dog out, and I'm, going and letting, getting up early and letting the dog out. So I haven't been able to just plow through the horror games because my son's been up with me. So I'm like, what's something we can do together? So the Halo Master Chief Collection, we started it together several times, but we've never finished the games together. That's something that my brother and I did when we were coming up and had a blast. So I wanted to play those with my kid. So we've been playing, we've almost finished Halo 2. We've already finished Halo 1. And we're just going to work our way through the series. And it just going back and playing, beautiful game, like the Halo 2 on the Master Chief Collection. Beautiful, beautiful game. I played single player for just a small amount of time, so I could show him. I was like, all right, son, this is what graphics looked like when I was coming up. and you can change to the old style graphics or the new style.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive, the amount of textures that they put in that game. And it was fun. He got the hang of everything. And it's kind of hard playing a game like Halo with him now because he's so into the Battle Royale scene and playing competitive with Apex and all that stuff. So, it's kind of like, this is kind of slow for him, which is sad for me because Halo changed multiplayer gaming, but, but we've been playing through that, having a good time. Playing some Minecraft Dungeons on Game Pass. I recommend playing the game by yourself, really. It's not a game maybe with one person, but I play that one with my two boys, and my 10-year-old, he does good with me, but my 5-year-old, who's really good at video games, he plays the opposite style as my son, my oldest. So you have one running forward. It's a dungeon crawler. So you're constantly running forward, trying to kill everything in sight. And then you got the other one who's kind of running around, just taking it all in. And the game has a lot of verticality to it with the terrain. And it's not smooth. You can't walk over it. You have to kind of jump over it because it's blocks. And what happens is one kid traps the other kid in a place that he can't get out of, and then we just get stuck and we're arguing like, no, you need to back up, no, you need to move forward, no, all right, you got to jump, you got to go around this part, and it just gets really frustrating.
I was just thinking of, as you say that, obviously they're your children, so you have to speak respectfully of them. But, for most of us that are playing a multiplayer game, that person just running around, just doing the dick moves, that would be the random, wouldn't they? Just doing whatever they want. There's always one of them in a game. It's just wonderful they're under your roof as well.
I'm trying to teach my random to stop being such a noob, But
I love
and then
that.
the only other game I'll point out, just as I'm kind of scrolling through my Xbox stuff, is Storm Boy.
Oh, nice.
That's a real long, real deep, involved game. That Storm Boy.
Yeah.
So it was on sale for like $1.19, and I was like, oh, I've platinumed that one.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and knock out that Xbox, version and get me some gamer score. So. Yeah, I was fired it up. I had a few minutes and, knocked that one out. So it's a neat little game. I actually sat down with my daughter and we went through it. I had her read to me. But it was good.
Yeah. It's just very apropos because it's based on an Australian book. That's lovely. Yeah, the story of Mr. Percival. Yeah, it's good. It's funny you mention the graphics there of Halo 2 because I picked up this week some of the new, well, it's not new, the remaster, I suppose, of the Asterix and Obelix XXL. They've done the second and third one over the last couple of years, of course, the wonderful French comic series. And they've finally done the first one. They call it a Romanesque, though, which is nice, a nice little touch. But they have this seamless feature. In fact, some of the achievements are tied to it. A seamless feature where you can play in both the original graphics or, the remastered graphics. And it's seamless. Like, you literally, it's just a flick of the button. And some of the challenges, coin collection challenges, their coins are in both modes. So you actually have to switch between mode to be able to see the coins. And it's a really cool effect I've never come across in a game. So it's interesting you mentioned that with Halo too.
Well.
It is, yeah. It's funny, because I like, playing a bit on the X lately. I've been jumping back into all these old games, and I started Assassin's Creed Syndicate again, just for the story this time, not for the completion. And it's funny, like that's only, what, a 4-year or so old game or something like this, but it is amazing how far or how dated some of those games have become. Not in their gameplay, but just in their graphical fidelity, I think. It's kind of scary, but yeah. We forget these things, I think.
What I told my son was we were looking at the old style of graphics, and I said, and I was flipping back and forth, I said, look at the texture, look at the difference. He's like, wow, Daddy, that's crazy. I said, yeah, the craziest part is when I looked at this back then, I saw, and then I flipped over to the modern style. That's what I saw, like to us, that was so high quality and the draw distance was insane. And it's it's neat. It's definitely, I really love when games are able to remaster 1-to-1 like that so that you can do the graphics comparison. I think that's really awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome, I think. And it's funny because I've been playing a bit of the Mafia 2 Definitive Edition, so I'm sort of immersed in these older games, so I think I've just become used to it a little bit, and you gel with it or whatever else, I suppose. But look, it is what it is. So, look, what we might do, listeners, is we'll just take a quick little break, and then on the other side of this, we'll attack the Push2Plat Platinum shoutouts, of which there are many. In fact, there are so many, we've decided to split them up over the next 2 episodes. So if you don't get a shoutout, don't panic. Of course, if you can't be asked to stick around for the shoutouts and all that sort of garbage, then do check out the deep dive that's coming up shortly as well. We'll catch you in a sec. So let's jump into the Push2Plat Platinum shoutouts. Of course, you all deserve a shoutout. So if you wish to get one, then while we still have the PS4 community on the PS4, while they still allow us the privilege, then please feel free to jump in and post, or of course you can post in the Discord like these wonderful hunters have done. And we'll start today with Renichi, number 174, Enemy Front. I can't put into words my thoughts on this game. Just a mess. Some good ideas, but poor implementation. And the frame rate and screen tearing almost unplayable. Edit. Almost forgot the worst part. Wow, there's more. It's fantastic, sir. The multiplayer. How dare the developers? The XP grind took 10 hours of running from point A to point B, requiring 4 players minimum to start. Well, see, look, I think what's happening here, Renichi, is that you're playing so many ultra rare platinums that you're losing the will to live. Darrel, we see this happen a lot, and perhaps what you need to do here is engage in some spam, just a little spam. Don't over spam, because we've seen the results of that as well, Darrel. But just a little spam, just to balance yourself out. Because your final comment here, this game was a mess, just like this comment, which is it's fantastic, sir. You deserve a place on this show, I can tell you. I like it. I'll throw to you, Darrel, for the next one.
All right, we got I'm styling on you, bro. 100% elk simulator. Bow down to the expert marksman and elk slaying extraordinaire. Per episode 76, quote, I wonder if even he's getting sick of those games, end quote. I was tired of all the back-breaking construction labor, so I took a nice relaxing trip to New Zealand, Canada, and the Colorado woods to hunt some elk. Right on. 'Twas never so relaxing listening to the harmony of birds as I got the blood-splattered satisfaction of a freshly harvested elk. This simulation allows such a retreat without the thousands of dollars in flight fees, bone-chilling cold temperatures, rope burn from my poor split-grip bow form, or getting knocked on my arse from the 30-06 rifle kickback. Heck yeah, I think that simulating hunting is definitely more rewarding than actually going hunting, because you can plan your entire trip, spend the thousands of dollars, and not see a goddamn thing.
At this point, we should give a shout out to Levi and his fresh kill that we did all see, Darrel. So somebody's
That's
good at
right.
it, just not us.
You know what? I don't know what the opposite of a shout out would be, but I'm gonna do a shout down to Levi, because that fool is here in South Carolina hunting, and he didn't hit me up to go grab some steaks together. I'm very disappointed in Mr. Levi.
Well, he's busy hunting, and I understand there's a lot of fair game at the moment wandering around in America, so we wish him the best of luck. I'm styling on you, bro. 100% mountain rescue simulator. I turned my air conditioning down to 45 degrees, then put on a parka and a pair of mittens to get even more immersed into this no-nonsense simulation. I highly recommend medical experience and balls of steel if you fancy attempting this simulation. It's really not selling it for us, is it, Darrel?
No.
You'll need to brave bone-chilling blizzards, hellishly high heights, and apocalyptic avalanches in order to rescue stranded wanderers and injured skiers. I can't thank the unparalleled intellectual genius at UIG Entertainment enough for providing Mountain Rescue Simulator to the masses. I love this simulation enough to marry it if I could, as it would make the perfect MRS. Well played, sir. Well, he just plays these games to write the comment, Darrel. That's how he.
I was wondering, like, who would torture themselves like this if not to write into a podcast to say, "Hey, I did a thing. I'd marry this game."
I love it. Now, this next game I'm going to let you do. This is the ultimate form of torture. It has inflicted its pain on many members of the community, I know, but I'll let you do the honors here, Darrel.
All right, I'm styling on you, bro. Platinum number 228. Idol Champions of the Forgotten Realms. Simply lovely. Glad I wanted to try to fit in with the cool people of the Push2Plat Discord and do the game. I was actually sad to see this go. Similarly to Fortnite, I just had a moment of clarity and remembered that I am indeed a trophy hunter, and it was time to put the throttle down. I could have easily spent many a month more on this game, as I was addicted to collecting everything, including the 408 plus achievements. Ye would be doing yourself a favor if you play this amazing free-to-play game. Now, is this game actually good? Or is that all sarcasm?
Well, it's popular in the trophy whoring community, Darrel, because it's an AFK game. So you can basically just keep resetting and leaving it for hours, and you don't have to any interaction. Particularly as you've invested more and more time into it, it's a progressive clicker game, so you get stronger if you like. You get more party members as you like. But the joke is that it's free, but this game is riddled with microtransactions that would make EA smile and laugh. Right, race to the bank. And this is the sort of game that, it's the ugly sister of the console. We don't hear about these games a lot, but it's basically a casino. It must be making them a shitload of money in the characters they release each week and the potions and all this stuff as well. So yes, you can get the plat for free, but there is a very strong temptation if you're not careful, or if you're if you're partial to the microtransaction, to invest potentially a lot of money in this game if you're not careful. Yeah, but congratulations, sir. Next up, we have Redbeard Rick, number 200, Bioshock. It's a milestone. Congratulations, sir.
Good job.
Absolutely love this. One of the greatest games ever made. It should be on everyone's bucket list to play. I think we could agree there, Darrel.
Yeah, I actually have beat Bioshock on Xbox 360 and PS3, and just recently started it over on PS4. Now, I've never gone for the Platinum, because the game is hard, and you have to beat it on the hardest difficulty, and sometimes I like my life.
That's right. Don't give him any ideas. He likes to stack big games, so he may take you up on those other versions. It's wonderful to see the next game here as well, continuing on in the style here, Darrel. 1000G completion on the Xbox, Roblox. Thanks to CJ for the help. Well, this is the sort of game that I live in, sir. My first Xbox boosting session went well. But look, I know, Darrel, you've been enticed by the achievements in this game recently too.
Yeah, I heard you and Seagal talking about it. So I looked at it, and I didn't realize that, I've been casually dabbling in it with my kids here and there. And I already had the majority of the achievements. I have to do the street achievements, and I need to get in an Xbox Live party with a friend and then join a game. Hint, hint, wink, wink.
Darrel, I found the appear offline button on the Xbox the other night. A fascinating discovery, sir. Now, look, one of the trophies in Roblox is to play for 10 and 20 consecutive days, and all you have to do is load up. I can tell you for the life of me, I get 3 days in and then forget on the 4th day. So there's plenty of time for us to do this trophy, because it's going to take me a long time to get 20 consecutive days, sir.
And I've done the same thing, because I go days, sometimes a week, without touching any video games.
Yeah.
And so I started this, I don't know, a week or so ago. And I was like, every night while the kids are brushing their teeth, I'll turn on Roblox, jump in a game, hop out, whatever. And then just, that'll be my time. Day number 2, I forgot. So I was like, okay, I started it over. I was like, day number 3, forgot.
Well, I'm now at the point where I'm like, I actually have time to turn it on now, but what's the point? Because I'm going to forget in 3 days anyway. So I'm now psyching myself out for the future.
I need to set an alarm and just be like, all right, at 11 p.m. every single night, go turn on Roblox.
See, this is why we're not real achievement hunters, Darrel. If we were, we would have this sorted out, But look, it is what it is. I'll let you take care of Boston George today.
All right. So, what was now? Redbeard Rick has 2,000 or 202 through 218. I'm sure he stacked some stuff, but he didn't say what he stacked.
No, look, he did, and it's a massive list that we're going to save because it needs special consideration. A list full of spam. Yes.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. Well, Boston George, 100% Little Big Planet 2. Trying to clear out these old PS3 titles before Sony inevitably pulls the plug. Platinum number 190 and my 900th trophy, Dragon Ball Battle of Z. Congratulations, Boston George. That's some good stuff right there. I started to do the same. I really made a push beginning of this year to knock out the PS3 backlog I have before the PS5 comes out. And I probably made it through like 20% of the PS3 games. And I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm just going to play what I want to play. And every time I set a goal, I do the opposite. My goal is to get a certain amount of platinums. I start playing Xbox. My goal is to beat PS3 games. I start playing PS4. My goal is to beat PS4 games. I start playing PS3.
Yeah.
I can't stick to anything.
It's wonderful, isn't it? You know, I'm similar because I've been listening to this other podcast, the wonderful R3 Cents, and they're doing their countdown, and they've been raving about this Hades recently, the roguelite game or whatever for PC and Switch. And I was like, you know, it's about time I played some Switch. I'm going to get this thing. Darrel, it's been sitting here for 3 weeks. It hasn't even been turned on, but it's a wonderful experience, I'm told. In my next life, I will get to that. So it's wonderful to have. Next up, we have JB Trophy Hunter 1975. I finally finished the platinum for Assassin's Creed 2. Yeah, I believe is that one of the feather ones? It's a nightmare.
That is 100 feathers or 500 feathers or something crazy like that.
Fairly simple platinum, to be honest, but the controls made some of my hair turn grey. Well, there you go, sir. You know, it's done. And the great news is there's just another 15 Assassin's Creed you now have to platinum to finish the series. So congratulations on that fine achievement. Over to you, Darrel.
All right, Onyx. Platinum number 960, Distraint Deluxe Edition. 961, Cross Crush. 960, I guess, it wasn't, it got 961 here twice. Maybe that's 962.
Yes.
So, Lee Eden de la Grisala.
A game that even the one-eyed pirate would be at home with that game.
And then number 963, Cross Crush again. I'm assuming that's either a duplicate or a stack.
Yes, it's a stack. This is an interesting game, Darrel. And, well, I don't know if it's an interesting game or not. I haven't played it, but it's interesting for us because it's made by the same developer that made Concept Destruction, the car game.
Oh, yeah. I like that game. That was a good one.
Yeah, this is more of a puzzler, I believe, of sorts. So it might be worth checking out. We'll have to see. Next up, we have MZ number 21, Mafia Definitive Edition. I never thought that I could love the fun and adrenaline of a Mafia game more than Mafia 2, but that all changed once I got to play the original. Sure, the classic difficulty trophy was a struggle at times, but thanks to tips from @thebesttrophyhunter ever, CSO, and determination to keep going, I finally got to plat this game. It's an absolute masterpiece and definitely worthy of a must-play for everyone, in my opinion. And it's wonderful, Darrel. If you haven't played the first one, this is the way to play it. It's a wonderful remake.
So I've played the first one. I loved it. I've actually played all three of them. The first two I beat on Xbox 360, and then I started the third one on PS4. I will get this new remaster run of the Mafia games. So most definitely, I haven't picked them up yet, but once the backlog beatdown, the event we're running is gone, I'm gonna go ham. I'm gonna make up for all the months of not buying every game and only buying like one or two games.
Well, I tell you what, in your race to play everything, I've got Hades here on the Switch if you want to borrow it and tell me if it's any good or not.
So you mentioned that, right? So I just went and opened up the Resident Evil Collection games on the Switch because they only ship with one game on the cartridge and then multiple codes that you have to download. And I woke up one morning and I'm like, these codes are going to expire. I have to open these sealed games and redeem them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I'll just play Resident Evil on the go, like let's beat another version of the games I've already beaten 100 times. I installed all 5 games, have not played any of them. They just Switch I just bring it into a room and then I do other things and the Switch just sits there.
It's so funny though, isn't it? Because the start of this week, I'm like, I always look at a week ahead to see what I'm going to be playing, what new games I'm going to be playing for 5 minutes for the following week, Darrel. And I noticed that the big release for this week is the Watch Dogs game, the Legion game, and I'm like, oh, I remember playing Watch Dogs. That was fun. But I never played 2. And like the disc, the game is from 2014, Darrel. How can you have it for so long on the shelf and have never put it in the system? Now, the greatest thing is I put it in the system for an hour and I was like, I don't like this at all. And then I thought, well, I've saved myself 5 minutes for next week, which is wonderful. But it's just alarming.
I have sealed copies of games on my shelf from 2015. I'm just like, I have a row of them. It's a game now. It's like I'll just put all the sealed ones together and see if I can fill this whole bookshelf up because I buy them and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna play that, and then I don't.
Yeah, it's wonderful, isn't it? I believe I have a copy of The Evil Within 2 still sealed, which will probably be sealed for the rest of my life. But
I have 2 copies of that one sealed because I bought it brand new on the PS4, sealed, never opened it because I wasn't finished with the first one. And then recently Amazon ran like a sale, and I was on the Xbox One version, and I was like, oh, well, I mean, for that price, I have to buy it.
I tell you what, Darrel, when this COVID disaster is over, we should perhaps pair our collection of unopened games and rival GameStop. I think we could probably do okay there, as new condition as well. It'd be wonderful.
That's right.
Okay, so, I'll let you come. Oh, we've got another mention for Boston George. I'll let you take this one.
Well, hang on. MZ had another one. So MZ had Platinum number 22, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Some trophies were a bit grindy, but still an enjoyable experience. I bounced off that game after like 3 or 4 hours. It just wasn't clicking for me.
But it's good to know there is a full game there, Darrel, if we ever decide to go back to it.
I mean, that's what they say. I don't know. I think I got the full experience already.
That's right. The plat comes after 6 hours. Nobody's seen beyond that. Who knows? Who knows? Boston George. We'll never know. Boston George, number 189, Control. A weird, fun time. Amazing how you have a map and are still not lost half the time. Now, we have to take a sidebar here, Darrel, courtesy of George. The wonderful DLC now is out for Control. I have not yet played it for no apparent reason. I don't know why. Have you tried any of the DLC yet?
No, sir. I have the exact same thing. I got the season pass, all of the DLCs downloaded and queued up, ready to go. I just got to do it. I love that game. I mean, you and I talked extensively about that game.
Amazing.
I don't even have the platinum yet, and I was like, oh, I'm getting this plat, and I just haven't got it yet.
I got a message about a month ago from someone saying, oh, it looks like you're really close to the plat in that game and you loved it. Why didn't, how much more do you have to go? Why didn't you finish it? I've got 3 collectible points to go there, Darrel. And the reason is I'm like, I'm going to play this when the DLC comes out. But now I'm so scared of the game because it's a bit of a learning curve, the controls in that game. And I'm like, oh, I think it's past me. So I may be forever 3 collectibles short in that game for the plat. These things happen. What can you do? Gaz Davis 11, number 64, Donut County. It's a very chilled game. It's a wonderful game. Number 65, Drive Club Bikes. It's a bit of a grind there at the end, that one, sir, but it's a wonderful game that deserved to live a better life, unfortunately, in the studio as well than they did. Over to you, Darrel.
Looks like MMR. TTAM? Are those supposed to be abbreviations?
Mr. Tam, I believe. We'll go with
Mr. Tam. All right, we'll go with that. So, Platinum number 98, Root Letter. Another VN, which took me far longer than it should have because I didn't guide or skip. Fun game, though, and interesting story.
Wonderful to see someone still reads a VNs. Well done, sir. Ed the Shed 2014, number 138, talking of reading VNs, number 138 and 139, The Language of Love, EU and NA. That is the current Radar plat, of course, coming in at a whopping 6 hours if you read, Darrel, and of course most of people will not, a whopping 2 minutes if you choose not to read. Congratulations there.
That's awesome.
It is, isn't it? Next up.
All right, Zador VP, Platinum number 475, Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus for the Vita. Long live the Vita. I haven't played on my Vita since 2016, and I haven't played the original Sly Cooper since the 2010 PS3 version, so it was a very fun, nostalgic experience again. Completed this as my 4th game for the Eigen's Push2Plat Discord event. Very, very good on all fronts. So.
It's funny you mention Long Live the Vita because I don't know if you've been on the store lately, the new store, at least on the PC facing store. It's impossible now to find Vita games.
Took it away.
Yeah, it's a great way to preserve the system. They're doing wonderful things there.
Well, see, they can't. They've been trying to kill it for 5 years now, and it won't die. So they're like, okay. We'll show you guys. You can't buy games for it anymore. So
Yet the sales will continue to increase probably. But it's a bizarre thing. Then we have a massive milestone here, number 1,300. Could you imagine having 1,300 plats, Darrel? It's an exorbitant.
That's crazy.
It's extravagant, isn't it? An extravagant amount of platinums. This is for Dino Raw, MotoGP 18. Massive improvements made in this game compared to the previous year's ones. Handling of the bikes is more realistic, and the chance of crashing has increased. I tell you what, I think that depends on how you play. I've never had a problem with the chance of crashing there, Darrel. I don't know if that's a concern for you or not. You need more crashing, but it is what it is.
I don't think that you could stop me from crashing in those games. So.
No, despite this, the game is the easiest MotoGP game I have ever played, and is well worth the 12 to 15 hours it takes to plat. I believe, sir, you're on a kick with these games, and you're about to hit a wall because MotoGP 19 is very, very tough. That difficulty trophy and beating the championship is really going to test you a lot. So good luck with that. But the cake ride is definitely over now. And then our final one, Darrel. I'll leave it to you.
Is that Tirasaya?
Look, I don't know. I butcher it every week, so I'm glad for you to have a go.
All right, so I'm going to go with Tirasaya. We're going to go with that. Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms. If you ever look at microtransactions, then socially distance yourself from this game. A truly definitive waste of time. Time waster.
It's very apropos for that game. But congratulations, you are free now, which is wonderful. And of course, it's probably around a 200-hour game, that game, with all the AFK in it. So it's no laughing matter. The amount of electricity you've wasted there is truly wonderful.
The amount of money you paid for that platinum.
That's right. Push2Plat Classic, her final platinum here. Liar Princess and the Blind Prince. Remember when this was considered a short platinum? That is very true, but it is a wonderful game of around 5 to 6 hours. Darrel, I know you don't have the time at the moment, as we've discovered, but this is a game you should add to your list at some point. It's a wonderful platformer game, not difficult in any extreme, with a lovely story and some wonderful animation as well.
It's on my list of things to avoid for a few more years.
Excellent. Well, look, Darrel, I'm gonna give you a break because you've done a wonderful job, and I appreciate you joining me today. We're about to kick off into this deep dive. I'm very interested to see what you thought of this Maid of Sker. But before I do, could I please get you to promote your wonderful podcast for any of the listenership that doesn't know, of course, the wonderful Loot Bros podcast and related podcasts you do as well.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. So I am the host of the Loot Bros podcast, a general video game and somewhat comedic podcast. We try to make people laugh and have a good time while talking about video games and things of that nature. I am also the host of the Loot Bros Comic Cast, which was started off as a spin-off podcast just for me and some friends to talk about comic books, but has really... I've gained a few real close hosts and friends that have kind of joined me, and it seems like it's becoming more of a weekly thing, and I really enjoy it. And then I also dabble, when I have the time, in the 2236 Survival Horror podcast. The comics show has kind of made me bench the horror show. It's just kind of, I can only podcast so many hours of the week, and you can only do what you can do. And then the other thing I would like to push and promote is, after years and years and years, my band Ninjaloot has finally gotten back together and started putting some music out. We released 2 songs earlier this year. One we talked about on this show called What Child. The other one back in May called The Respect Issue, which is more metal and more true to form as far as what we like to put out. And then recently we re-released the theme song for the Loot Bros podcast, Time Is Running Out, which is a rap rock collaboration. So we've actually put out 3 different styles of music on our Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes, all that stuff. And then here in a few weeks we're going to drop a 4th song for this year that we're super proud of. So if you guys don't mind just checking out Ninjaloot, if you like heavy music. If you don't like heavy music, Yeah, we got one song for you. That's it.
I like it. And of course, if you're looking for any of that information, it will all be in the show notes. So listeners, as always, I hope you have a wonderful coming week. I hope the gaming is good. Many of the big titles are hitting us now, Darrel. Of course, Watch Dogs Legion we referred to briefly today. In the racing scene, we've got Dirt 5 is the big one for next week as well. There is plenty of enjoyment to be had. Of course, if you fancy a little horror in your gaming, then stick around. We'll be right back with you soon. Have a wonderful week. Happy gaming. Push2Plat podcasts are conceived, written, and edited by CJ Anderson in Adobe Audition. YouTube upload handled by Repurpose.io. Music licensing by Artist.io. Push2Plat would like to thank all our Patreon supporters, with special mention to our Patreon producers Zador VP, Redbeard Rick, Ready to eBeg, and MZ Nitro. Without your support, this show would cease to exist. If you would like to say hi, jump into the Discord in the show notes or on Twitter at Push2Plat. If you're interested in supporting the show, then jump on Patreon, the Push2Plat Patreon, where you can find more information on how to support us and to allow us to continue to bring wonderful guests and topics from around the world.